Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 642. And today's date is April 15th, 2015. And the title of this episode is New York Fed Preparing for the Economic Collapse. Let's get right into the economic collapse news. Now, we understand the central bankers would love to give Greece some more debt. And if they're not going to accept more debt, what they're going to do is they're going to have the credit rating agencies lower their status. And we can see that S&P downgraded Greece to CCC+. And we understand that as of right now, Greece is looking at this debt. They formed a special committee. And they're looking to see which debt was created illegally, fraudulently. And they're going to basically label that odious debt, where they're saying, we're not responsible for this. And we see already that they've been making deals with Russia, signing new deals, hoping they will spur economic growth, because we know with the central bankers, there's going to be absolutely no growth whatsoever in Greece. They have given the central banking system how many years now? 7 years? And what have we seen? We've seen Greece go further and further into debt. We've seen austerity. We've seen businesses close. We've seen people lose their jobs. We see the youth of the country not able to find work. And we can see that Greece might be pivoting towards Russia. And it seems as every day that goes by, they seem to move in that direction. We see Greece is exerting every effort for the sake of lifting sanctions against Russia. And they're trying to get the sanctions removed. Because if they can get those sanctions removed, Russia will lift the ban on food. If Russia lifts the ban on food, economic growth. They can start selling their agricultural products to Russia. And then, of course, every other European nation is going to say, well, wait a minute. We would like the same thing because we have a stockpile and we don't know what to do with it. We're losing billions upon billions of dollars every single day. Now, out in Canada, just like we're seeing in many of the private Western Central Bank countries, we're starting to see the economies are starting to falter. They're starting to fall apart. And right now, Canada's housing bubble, which has been so much more magnificent than anything the U.S. is ever able to conjure up, well, it's starting to fall apart just like the U.S. housing bubble. We see since 2000, home prices have jumped about 140% in the survey's 11 metropolitan markets. When U.S. housing went into a terrific tailspin, Canada's home prices just dipped about 8% before resoaring. Fired up by easy money, a resource boom that has now crashed, and in certain metropolitan markets are basically getting an influx of foreign buyers. And they're boosting the prices. We see this in the United States. Home prices are now 26% higher than they were at the already crazy peak in 2008. In other areas, once booming, home prices have already started to decline. Victoria saw home prices soar to about 125% between 2002 and 2008. They dropped during the financial crisis, recovered by June 2010, and they peaked again, but have since been meandering with a downward bias and are now 5% below their 2010 peak. In Calgary, the index now is down 2.1% from the October peak. Edmonton home prices have been petering out and currently are at 3.2% below where they were in September of 2007. So we can see right now the economy, the real estate market in Canada not doing well. I mean, look what's happening in retail. Target closed all their stores, laid off all those people. We're seeing more layoffs, more store closings. And again, this is a domino effect. It will affect everything. We see the Baltic Dry Index hovering around 580 points. Sometimes it moves up a couple points, then it moves down, but it's staying even. It's nowhere where it was last year or the year before or the year before that. It is way off. It is on a downward trend. And we see here in the United States, what do we see? Well, the Empire Fed Manufacturing tumbled to negative 1.2 in April, missing the expectations of a 7.17 from 6.9 in March. New orders stood out as it crashed to its lowest since January of 2013. We see the U.S. industrial production plunges by most since August 2012. Basically, it dropped to 0.3% month on month. 0.6% month on month. The worst since 2012. Almost as worse as June of 2009. We are not manufacturing anymore. Countries, people are having a hard time surviving. They don't have the income. They don't have the jobs. They don't have the disposable income to go out and just purchase. If they're not purchasing, the factories, manufacturers don't have to produce. If they don't have to produce, they don't need the raw material. And this is why we see the Baltic Dry Index staying where it is. And it reflects in each one of the countries of how the people are doing. They're not doing well. But of course here, we see the home builders in the United States. They're very confident. The National Association of Home Builders, they're very optimistic about this spring, summer. Of course, they should be, because this is their hot time to sell this real estate. This is when people put their houses up for sale. They plant flowers. They try to bring in the people. They try to get the highest price for their house. And we see that the optimism surged to 56, beating expectations of 55. Does this mean that the housing market is back on track? No. They're hoping. Very big difference between hope and reality. Yes, we all have hope, but then reality sets in and shows us that it's not doing what everyone thought it was going to do. We see weekly mortgage applications drop. As soon as the rates tick up a little bit, I noticed the mortgage applications dive down. Now, can you imagine if the mortgage rates went up by a full percentage point or 2 percentage points? It would crash. This is a sign to let you know what will happen. They ticked up a little bit and mortgage applications fell by 3%. Because once they tick up, people need more money to put down on the house. Your payments go up, and it knocks a lot of people out of the running to purchase that home. If they go up 1% or 2%, forget about it. And this is why they continually fall. And this is why the central banking system is trying to keep the interest rates at 0%. As low as they possibly can. We know that students who are graduating college, and we're going to have another class graduating come this May, there'll be thousands upon thousands of students with hefty student loans, and they're going to find that, there's no jobs. 80% of these kids can't find work. If they do find work, it's part-time. It's not in their major. They're not making the income to pay for the student loans. And right now, the student loan is around $1.3 trillion in non-dischargeable loans to students, which is not a good thing, which means it goes on your credit. It stays with you. You cannot get rid of it. It's with you forever. And of course, the central bankers would like to change this because they would like to have a bailout of the student loan because it's $1.3 trillion. And what we're seeing right now is that these students who are getting these jobs, most of them are in the food industry, part-time work, still living with their parents. And a new report was released, and we see that 27.3% of these students are delinquent in repayment. well above the 17% figure for all student borrowers. Something is wrong in our society. If these kids go to school, they go to college, they get a degree, they're in debt, they can't find work, how is an economy supposed to survive? How is it supposed to grow? Because you have to remember, the youth, it's the next generation. It's supposed to save money, purchase a car, save some more money, purchase a home, go out and buy goods in the retail market, but they can't. And this is the problem. If we break it down on a monthly basis, what do we see? Well, we see nearly 1 in 3 Americans who are now having to pay down their student debt are at least a month behind on their payments. It's very difficult. And even those youths who get a job, it's part-time. It's low salary. Those people who lost their jobs, who got laid off because of the economy, who can find maybe a full-time job, but maybe making half the money, or can only find 2 or 3 part-time jobs, not making anywhere near what they made, they need additional help because they can't make it. And we're starting to see that the welfare are those people who are working but can't make it even though they are working. Nearly 75% of those receiving some form of public assistance come from working families, confirming that when it comes to straining the public purse, bad jobs may be a bigger problem than no jobs. And we see as time goes on, I know the president keeps telling us that, and the central bankers continually tell us that the unemployment rate is at 5.5%, but from all this other evidence that we're seeing, it makes no sense. It makes no sense that we're almost at full employment during the good times. It makes no sense. Even as the economy has at last begun to expand at a more rapid pace, growth in wages and benefits for most American workers has continued its decades-long stagnation. Real hourly wages of the median American worker were just 5% higher in 2013 than they were in 1979. So basically, what's going on here? Well, when jobs don't pay enough and you have to get multiple jobs just to get by, the public will turn to government assistance. And this is what we are seeing today. And more people are losing their jobs. More and more businesses are closing down. Remember, yesterday we reported on, Obama was out there telling everyone that, small business is rebounding. They're going to be hiring people. And we found out, no, they're actually hiring nobody. They're closing. We see in California, Agora Hills based Interthink sold off its mortgage division. 70 people being laid off. Now, if the housing market is in recovery and everything is fantastic and we see it just going crazy, why would they be closing a mortgage company? It makes no sense. In Colorado, Longmont, spy satellite operator Digital Globe laid off 64 people. It's part of the company's plan to kill about 155 jobs across the United States. Florida and Tampa. Ohio, Retail Security and Main Street Maintenance issued a warning saying that at least 49 people will be laid off by the end of May. New Jersey, Keene University announced it will lay off 54 janitors and groundskeepers. Ruby Tuesday is going to be closing 30 restaurants. Murray American Energy, 200 people laid off. Fresh Cut Produce, 100. Canjet Airlines, 115. Android Industries, 589. More and more people are losing their jobs. It's funny because the government, the corporate media, the central bankers always tell you the number of jobs added. They never tell you how many were lost. Yes, they might have added 189 or 200,000, but what they forgot to tell you is that we lost 1.1 million, or 500,000, or 700,000 jobs. They leave that part out. We see that Walmart is closing stores for a plumbing issue. Now, this seems kind of strange to me, where they're going to be closing about 5 different stores. They're not in the same location. They're spread out across the country, and they're saying that all of these stores have plumbing problems. Well, what's very interesting is that none of the 5 affected stores have sought any plumbing permits for future repairs. So is that really the reason why they're closing? I don't think so. I can't believe a store of that size in 5 different locations would close down because of plumbing. It makes no sense. The Fed official is out there saying, listen, there are going to be many more cities that are going to declare bankruptcy, just like Detroit. This is coming from Fed President William Dudley. And he didn't name the cities. He just says, yes, cities are ready to go. They can't make it, and they will declare bankruptcy. Well, if we're in a recovery and people are working, revenue's coming in, why are they having this problem? So all the evidence now is pointing to, yeah, we're not in a recovery. We're in a collapse scenario, but they're never going to admit it. In Europe, they've dropped the interest rates so low that some of the banks are at negative interest rates. And the vast majority of mortgages, like in Portugal, some in Italy, some in Spain, are tied to the Euribor, the rate it costs European banks to borrow from each other. If it drops low, enough banks will have to pay borrowers. And it already is happening. In Spain, those people that have mortgages, the bank is subtracting their interest and giving it back to them. And this is the Spanish bank, Bank Inter, and this is the 7th largest lender by market value. And basically, why is the interest rate so low? Because if they let it go up, the entire system will collapse in a second. And this is why they're not letting it happen. They can't let it happen. We saw it back in 2007 going into 2008. The interest rate crept up. As it kept going up, sales declined, traffic dried up, people left their homes with all the furniture in there. They just left. They couldn't afford it. And everything accelerated. And it got worse. And it got worse. And the market went down. Businesses started to lay off. The same thing is going to happen. We're heading down that path. And of course, the government is continually taxing the people. They want to add more taxes. Obamacare is one of those taxes. Even though you don't think it is a tax, it is a tax. It is not a benefit for the people. You don't need a penalty if you do not want it. Again, it should be the choice of the people, not the choice of the government. But there was a person who's about 26 years old, and they're saying, you know something? Health insurance is not cheap. Basically, that person couldn't get insurance. Their parents' insurance expired. He couldn't be under there anymore. And he did not receive health insurance from his employer. He was a consultant. So he went to the Delaware marketplace, like thousands of other Delawareans who don't have health insurance, and he was introduced to 4 different metal plans. Those are the different plans they have there. And basically, since he is under 30, he's eligible for a catastrophic plan. And the price for the cheapest available catastrophic plan on the Delaware Health Insurance Exchange was roughly $190 per month, with a deductible of $6,600. So think about this for a second. He will have to pay $8,800 before insurance kicks in. So he'll be paying $109 a month, $190 a month, and when he has to go to the doctor and it's a $200 bill, it's out of pocket. So he spent $190 plus a $200. If he goes again to the doctor, he's still, until he reaches the $6,600 deductible. And then the deductible starts again the next year. So if he doesn't meet it, he just paid his premium. And he paid everything out of pocket. And then it resets the next year. So every year, he will have to owe $8,880. And of course, we know the premiums will go up, so that number will go up. Is that really a benefit? And he tried to be subsidized, but he did not qualify for to be subsidized on the health insurance. This is not a benefit. This existed before. The only difference today is they're forcing you to get it. And the insurance companies are profiting from it, because this is what happened when they created it. The insurance companies wrote the entire law. It only benefited themselves and the government to bring in revenue for taxes. And there was no benefit for the people, because look how the insurance companies can avoid paying out. It's a perfect plan for them. It's not perfect for the people. Now, we understand that the U.S. government central bankers, they basically are trying to remove the rights from the people. I mean, they love to have the Constitution gone, because we can see how they react without a Constitution in other countries and what they do to the people there. And they would love to do the same thing here in the United States. But that pesky Constitution and the rights of the people, it always gets in the way. And we can see right now they're trying to chip away at their rights, especially the Second Amendment. And we understand that they're trying to take the weapons away from the people. They've been trying for quite a while. This is why they create thousands upon thousands of laws. This is why they're bringing up new different types of tactics of looking at mental illness, trying to ban ammunition, and they're doing many other different things. One way they were trying to do it is they were trying to have the investors tell stores what they can and cannot sell. And they did this to Walmart. Walmart was selling rifles. They sell, hunting equipment, ammunition. And the investors said, something, we don't want you to sell rifles. And you're going to have to listen to us. And Walmart said, no, well, we don't want to listen to you. You can't dictate what we can or cannot sell. So basically what happened is the investors went to court. Walmart went to court. And the judge decided investors have no right to tell the company on what to sell. If they want to sell rifles, they have every right to. And basically what they're saying is that the investors do not have the right to tell a company on how to run the store. And again, we can see they're trying to do whatever they possibly can to stop stores from selling weapons. I mean, look at Operation Choke Point. The Obama administration is cutting off the funding for those stores that sell firearms. And they can't process Visa, MasterCard, American Express. And basically, they're stopping those stores from operating. And it's not because they did something wrong. It's because they don't like those stores. And this is what they're trying to do in America. And they're going to continually try to do this because this is their goal. You have to remember, the United States government central bankers, they have certain goals they would like to meet. I mean, they love to get Assad, as we know, in Syria. That is their goal. They would love to get rid of the Constitution. That is their goal. And they will continually try to find different ways to do this. And we can go back in time and see all the different ways and all the laws that they try to implement to try to stop the weapons being purchased by the American people. But of course, all this is backfiring because the people are realizing every time they come out and they do this, they go out and they purchase more and more weapons. But again, they will up the ante as time goes on. We're seeing Jade Helm right now. I mean, this is a very strange drill. A lot of people saying that this might go live. And if they do get the signal, the green light, it will go live. Everything will be in place. The troops will be in place. And it's very easy to do. I mean, we saw 9/11. FEMA was on the ground already. They got the green light. Boom, it was on. It went live. if they just so happen to be in the right place at the right time. We saw it at the Boston bombing. So we can see that if they get the green light, they will push the agenda, because their main agenda is to rip up the Constitution, take away everyone's rights, declare martial law, and control the people, because you know what? The collapse is coming, and they know it. And as time goes forward here, they're running out of time, and they know this. It's only a matter of time before it hits, because they are losing control of the Middle East. And if all these countries stop using the dollar when they sell the oil, this is where the problem comes in. We see a lot of nations now de-dollarizing. They're moving away from the dollar. They're handling their transactions without using the dollar. And when countries do not have to keep the dollars in reserve, guess what? They come back to the United States. Dollars flooding the United States causes hyperinflation. And what we're seeing now is deflation in some areas, but we're seeing inflation in others. And what I think is happening right now, since they're trying to push their agenda, we're seeing deflation first. And it's like a tidal wave. When it builds up, all the water is sucked out. That's deflation. But when it gets built up enough, it comes right back crashing down, and that's hyperinflation. We see that the NSA, CIA, DHS, FBI, all spying on the American people. A company, during the testing of an application, realized that the Facebook chat was doing something strange. They saw IP activity, and they noticed 16 Internet Protocol IDs calling out. And they're like, what is all this? What's going on here? This is very strange. And we can see from all of this that they said, let's do some testing and track this down. Where is all of this going, all this information? And they went ahead to do it, and they did the test. And guess what? The IP addresses led to a third-party observer. They ran a trace. The trail led them to Recorded Future, an American-Swedish startup which has been backed by Google, CIA, and NSA. So basically they're spying on everyone's chats. We see that the inventor of antivirus, McAfee, is saying that encryption will help you in a way of protecting your communications, but when the government, or any one of these agencies in the government, NSA, CIA, FBI, DHS, places malicious software on your device, encryption does nothing because they have access to your device. And that app will steal the information and send it right to them. And they can do this using that Stingray device. Basically what happens is Stingray pushes automatic updates. They add malicious software to your phone as soon as it comes into range. And once they do that, there's no way out of this. Encryption is worthless. But let's see the 5 disturbing things about the FBI and local police Stingray surveillance programs. Number 1, police obtain Stingrays for terrorism purposes, but most police departments have refused to release any information about how often Stingrays are used and what terrorists they actually caught with using this device, which is none. What are they using it for? They're using it to spy on American people. 2, police have been using Stingrays for nearly a decade in complete secrecy thanks to the part of the FBI. Number 3, the FBI has forced police departments to sign a non-disclosure agreement in order to obtain Stingray technology, forbidding cops from talking about the technology. As part of these non-disclosure agreements, police are required to drop criminal prosecution if there is a danger of any of the information about the Stingray getting out there to the court. So they rather let the criminals go than give up their information about the Stingray device. Very interesting. The FBI director has said it needs to keep secret the existence of Stingray spying from the bad people. You mean the American people. They don't want them to know about it. This is why it's been a secret for so long. Number 4, across the nation and in the FBI itself, law enforcement officials are using stingrays without warrants. When police use stingrays without warrants and without informing judges that they intend to use the powerful devices to conduct surveillance, judges cannot either refuse to grant the warrants based on lack of probable cause or impose minimization requirements on the police. 5, it's not clear that stingrays and similar technologies can be used even with warrants in a manner that conforms to the Fourth Amendment. Because you have to remember, the Fourth Amendment basically gives the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures, and it shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause. Under the Fourth Amendment, prosecutors must show probable cause to a judge to support the specific things a person to be searched will reveal evidence of a crime. And guess what? Most of the time, they can't present this to a judge. They don't have any information, so they know they're not going to get the warrants. And this is why they do this in secrecy. And we understand that many countries now are coming up with these laws which infringe on people's rights. The governments basically say, listen, we're going to go out and do whatever we have to do to stop terrorism. If we have to remove a website, block it, we will do this. And we see France, they have this law now, and they're putting it into practice. France has just blocked a handful of websites it has deemed favorable to terrorists and their organizations. So basically what happens here is the government in Paris blocked about 5 websites it accused of condoning terrorism in what is the first employment of the new government powers that took effect in February. Basically what they do is they decide what is and is not terrorism. And there's no review of it. They just go out and say, yeah, take that down. Yeah, take that one down. Basically, the ministry sends a ban order to the website owner, and they say, take it down. If they don't take it down, they go right to the internet service provider, and they have it blocked. So no judge reviews the Interior Ministry's decision. The minister first requests, like I said, the website to be taken down. If they don't do it, they just go ahead and they do it. So the government is deciding what is and is not offensive to the people. Well, how do we know that they're not just taking down any website? We don't. And this is the problem. They're making choices for the people. And they're deciding what is good or bad for the people. Now, it seems that the White House is going to remove Cuba from the state sponsor of terrorism list, and Cuba was first placed on the list back in 1982 when the U.S. accused Castro, the government of Castro, of promoting armed revolution by organizations that used terrorism. Well, wait a minute, isn't that what the United States is doing around the globe? So basically, the United States is a terrorist nation, if you really think about it. And with Cuba's removal, the only other countries that are left on the U.S. sponsor of terrorism is Iran, which that could be removed very soon, Sudan, and Syria. And we can see it's basically those nations they need to take control of. Isn't that amazing? It's all the nations they want control of. Sudan, there's a war going on. Syria, there's a war going on. Iran, they're in peace talks right now. But again, they're trying a different tactic with Iran because they saw that they're not going to be able to get into Iran any other way. So they're trying all different methods to reach the same goal, and that goal is to take over the natural resources, place the US dollar on those natural resources, and set up a central bank. Russia in Ukraine is getting ready to sue Ukraine for their $3 billion worth of Ukraine's non-tradable Eurobonds with a coupon of 5% and a maturity date in December of 2015. Russia has notified Ukraine that it expects to honor its obligations. Russia will turn to the courts should Ukraine fail to pay the $3 billion debt. But we see the EU has given Ukraine another 1.8 billion euros. They approved it. They're going to receive it. And they need this money because the economy of Ukraine is collapsing. They cannot survive. I mean, last year, the European Union allocated about 1.36 million euros, 1.36 billion euros, with the final tranche of about 250 million euros to be dispersed this month. And we understand that the Normandy 4, they all got together. They talked about the Minsk II agreement, the ceasefire. But guess what? We're not seeing a ceasefire. Actually, things are ramping up now. The OSCE, the Special Monitoring Mission to Ukraine, said it has seen a massive increase in the number of ceasefire violations in eastern Ukraine in the recent days. Kiev is turning up the heat. There was a news reporter and the OSCE, they were fired upon by Kiev. Kiev is violating the Minsk II agreement. They violated the Minsk I agreement. But guess what? Again, nobody cares about that. We see the U.S. paratroopers. They have arrived in Ukraine. 50 paratroops and 25 vehicles disembarked from Italy after traveling through Austria, as well as NATO allies, Germany and Poland. The military caravan arrived in Ukraine on Friday. Their Operation Fearless Guardian is the code name given to U.S. efforts to train the Ukrainian National Guard. Spanning a 6-month period, the exercises will begin later this month. While 300 U.S. soldiers will take part, the convoy delivered equipment as well. So they're getting ready to start the next offensive. Actually, Lavrov from Russia, he's out there saying that provocateurs in Kiev and those who support the party of war might attempt to cook something up to start the war once again. And this is what we call a false flag event. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see this come very, very soon. Now, something strange here. The U.S. send a mysterious 150 tons of diplomatic mail, at least that's what they told everyone, that it's 150 tons of diplomatic mail to the embassy in Kyrgyzstan. Basically, Washington's not saying anything about this. But a mysterious Ukrainian aircraft delivered about 150 tons of cargo with the status of diplomatic mail to the U.S. Embassy in Kyrgyzstan. Very odd. The U.S. Embassy in Bishkek received a total of 12 containers weighing the 150 tons, which they received between March 28th and the 30th. We don't know what's in these crates, but it's very strange. And we also understand a huge Galaxy plane landed in Ukraine. For what reason, we don't know. So something is definitely going on at this point in time. We had another incident of the Russian bombers flying in international space near England, and British fighter jets intercepted and basically escorted the bombers. And of course, the corporate media and everyone else is making a really big deal of this. But again, the bomber was in international airspace. They didn't violate anything. So nothing really happened. This is common where military planes fly, other military planes meet up. But of course, the corporate media, the government, they love to fan this up to make it seem like Russia is doing something. The opposite happened when the United States flew very close to the Russian border and they sent their jets up. And of course, they turned the story completely around. This is all about provoking. That's what they're doing. India decided to scrap the major arms deal with France, and they're making a deal with Russia instead. So instead of buying 126 fighter planes from France, they're buying 127 fifth-generation Russian fighters. And we can see right now a lot of countries are moving away from the private one central bank countries, and they're turning towards Russia and China. Greece is out there, and they're saying, you know something? We might order some spare parts for our Russian weapon systems, including the S-300 air defense system, the Kornet anti-tank missiles, and the Zubr-class hovercraft. Greece might even discuss with Russia allowing them to use some of the bases here in Greece. And under the treaty with NATO, they have every right to do this because no international statute prohibits the cooperation of two countries. And this would be a huge, huge blow to the US and the European nations if Russia does set up a base in Greece. Now we understand that the US is pivoting towards China. They're containing China, and U.S. military strategies such as the air-sea battle doctrine and the quadrennial defense review are directed against China and simulate potential airstrikes against the country despite Washington's insistence that the drills have no particular target. The review of the quadrennial defense in 2014 said the U.S. needs to respond to growing military budgets, territorial disputes, and tension over claims on natural resources in the Asia-Pacific region and help countries in the region maintain long-term stability and prosperity. The U.S. military airstrikes in the future will be aiming at maintaining a leading role and defending U.S. interests in the region, as well as establishing a regional code of conduct. Although the U.S. government claimed that the air-sea battle strategy does not focus on a single country, the Defense Review last year named China as a major threat against the interests of other countries in that area. And we know they're going after China. China now is helping Iran develop their new nuclear plants. Russia is also assisting. And we could see right now, Iran is making deals with China, Iran is making deals with Russia, and they're continually expanding. Again, we have the barter deal going on with Russia at this point in time with Iran, getting and bypassing the sanctions. We understand out in the Middle East, the battle in Yemen is still going on. And we understand that the authorization for war basically has completely stalled in Congress. It is going absolutely nowhere. They're saying that there's no reason to even look at it at this point. So what do you think is going to happen? At the right time, at the right moment, most likely this summer, you will see an event to push the authorization for war forward. They're just waiting. They would like this to happen on its own, but if they have to push it along, guess what? This is exactly what they're going to do. We also see the New York Fed, the plunge protection team, is going to have a disaster area in Chicago. Why are they doing this? Well, they're saying that the reason for doing this is because if there's a natural disaster or maybe a shutdown of the markets because of maybe a cyber attack, a physical attack in New York, we want to make sure we are ready for it and we have another area where we can control everything. What are we getting out of this? We understand that the exchanges, the financial system, they are getting prepared for a major cyber attack. Maybe a physical attack where they have to shut down the markets for a period of time. They don't want to be in that region. They want to be in a separate region because they're going to have to restart them to get the economy going once again. And they know this, and this is why they implemented the kill switch in the BAT system, New York Stock Exchange, and the NASDAQ system so they can stop it at any point. They have been prepared for this for quite a while. They know it's coming. They know the economy is completely falling apart. And we see that the Pentagon right now is drafting thousands of cyber forces in prep for a cyber emergency. Because as you know, once we get into war, it's not just going to be a physical war. It's going to be a cyber war. And they know this. They know once they provoke this war, there will be physical attacks here in the United States because, again, those players that the United States government central bankers are picking on are nuclear powered. They have ballistic missiles that can reach the United States. They have subs that can creep up silently and launch the missiles from right outside of the borders. So we realize that, yes, there will be physical attacks, but there will also be cyber attacks, which eventually could shut down gas, water, electric. And this is why everyone needs to be prepared. It can shut down the financial institutions. And this is what they're hoping for. Right now, the Pentagon, they're not prepared for this. We don't have the weapons. We don't have the ability to wage this war. But the central bankers, once again, they really don't care. Because they realize the system is crumbling apart. They realize they want to restart it after the war, so they can't be blamed for it. They need to blame another country. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.